No more flames were seen rising from any churches in East Texas after 10 had been burned down at the beginning of 2010. But the investigation was still hot as law enforcement was catching up to the arsonist.
I think everybody's talking about it. I heard it at the gym, I heard it at Walmart yesterday. We had a meeting of the religious churches, religious groups in churches. About 125 people came to learn more. But I think most people are trying to guess, is it a professional, is it a child, is it a group of kids?
The names of the arsonists, Jason Bork and Daniel McAllister, weren't the only tips law enforcement received from its reporting line.
We've only got these tips within the last week or so.
One of the congregation members who was at Clear Spring Baptist Church the night of the final fires would call with another important clue.
We found out there was a small blue vehicle that was seen in the area, and this is out in the middle of nowhere. There's no reason for a vehicle to be parked there.
Federal agents with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or the ATF, as well as local law enforcement and several other agencies would begin searching East Texas for blue cars.
Jason drives the car, and he usually comes to my house, and he'll hang out with us, hang out for about a couple minutes, and those two will leave.
Okay. And what kind of car is it that he drives when he comes to pick up Daniel McAllister?
I want to say it's a Ford Focus.
What color is that?
Blue.
I
guess it's like a royal blue.
Smith County Sheriff Larry Smith was on the case with the ATF back in 2010. He says when the tip came in with Bork and McAllister's names, teams immediately began to track down the 19 and 21-year-olds, starting at Bork's house, where he lived with his grandparents.
And as they're pulling into the driveway, the lady is pulling out, which ends up later being Jason Bork's grandmother.
With the information from the young men's family and friends, investigators already knew Bork drove a blue Ford Focus. As the agents began talking to Bork's grandmother, another clue would pop up.
So the garage door was still up from where she left. As they walked past the garage door, they recognized the shoes turned over, muddy tennis shoes, which are identical to the Skechers shoes.
Not wanting to give Mrs. Bork any clue that law enforcement was onto her grandson, the investigators simply discussed with Jason's grandfather and Jason himself they were in the area looking at all blue vehicles.
As they're leaving the driveway, they call and give me the information, and before they get out of the area, we have our technical people headed out there to put up cameras and things.
Bork was now under police surveillance. Daniel McAllister's older sister, Christy, works in dispatch for the Department of Public Safety. She was also working with law enforcement to provide details about her brother for the case.
My brother wears blue jeans and this old ratty pair of work boots that he's had seems like forever.
Now investigators knew Bork owned Skechers and McAllister had work boots, just like the footprints left at the fires. Time was ticking to catch the young men before another church could burn.
We would send people out to convenience stores and everything in the area and try to see if we could get footage, all the video footage.
Bork would be captured on video at an Exxon off of 110 and Interstate 20 near the 9th church that had burned down, Dover Baptist Church in Lindale.
In the stores immediately after the fire started, out in isolated areas.
And later, the surveillance team would tail him to the former Atwoods in Tyler.
Video footage from all their store cameras that saw him go directly inside, go immediately to the restroom.
It was as if the smoke had cleared, pointing directly back to Bork.
Carved in the divider in the stall of the men's restroom was a upside down cross with some scratching in there, and it says Little Hope was arson.
The ATF's team of fire experts had already re-investigated Little Hope and determined it was intentionally set on fire just like the 9 after it.
But the only other person who knew it was arson, because we didn't tell anybody else, was the fire setter.
The arrest affidavit for the then 19-year-old grew longer and longer as the surveillance team kept following him.
He actually dropped a cigarette butt on the TJC campus, and investigators were able to collect it.
Not only would Bork's DNA point him back to the rocks used to break into the churches, he even took investigators back to the scenes of his crimes.
We actually were able to follow him past some of the churches that had been previously burned, which we felt was not a normal path from TJC to where he was living at the time.
During the church fires, McAllister had been traveling frequently between East Texas and San Antonio to visit his fiancée. Law enforcement tracked down his bus tickets to see if there was any correlation with the fires,
which showed he was in town here and put them together during these church fires.
February 1st, 2010. Not even 2 months since the first arson, the suspects were arrested. Bork for burning down 10 East Texas churches, and McAllister was charged with 4 of the arsons. The pair are now serving life sentences behind bars.
Now be sure to watch us tomorrow at 10 as we look back through the fire to remember the East Texas church fires.